Good evening to our people, South Africa, the broader South Africa out there. So we are at the castle in Cape Town, and we are in one of the spaces. When I got there, I said to Brother Al, look at the fresh water that's running here. Now I do recall spending some time here with Brother Kingsley. He's very well known in the Khoi movement, in the indigenous movement. You know, even still today in this time of 2025, we still have people that live that life, you know, of the indigenous, the way our people lived back then, and it still continues, you know. But I said to Brother Al and the team that's here tonight, I said, guys, do we realize that we are here at the castle that was actually built by our people? Like, I would literally, like, guys, slaves, like at the time, let's say our great grandparents and those that came before them, even, you know, they actually built this, you know. And I can only imagine what was happening here, back in the 80s, back in the 70s, the 60s, maybe even before that. But the Greyson was ook 'n grill, man, as hy is. Like, the Greyson was grill, ze dink net, joh, wat het aangegaan hier agter die deure hier? Hoekom hier is literally is dungeons. Now, you guys know what the dungeon is. The dungeon is amper so like 'n ondergrond. Ek sal sê is 'n tronkie, ons worster as hy wat hulle soos die slawe geslat het en vir hulle brutally gemurder is getortured het, man. Nou hy dungeons exist nog altyd, is nog altyd hier so. Right, but ons is hier eintlik vandaan om te commemorate. En miskien moet ek begin dit met hy. Ek wil dankie sê vir die organisers wat die ding aan mekaar gesit het vandaan. You guys will see it on Wake Us Up in the Hood on the channel. We're speaking about the life of Ashley Creel, you know, en ek sit daar binne en ek bewe so, because as amper soos alles wat hulle praat daar binne van Ashley, as 'n hele documentary wat speel van hom en hoe hy sê wie hy gewys het, hoe die type of persoon wat hy gewys het en hoe hy gestaan het en bekleed het vir ons freedom wat ons het vandag, man. Hoe hy bekleed en hoe hy die jong mense, how he used to rally the young people and mobilize the young people and bring them together, conscientize the young people, educate them, you know, bring them on a level. He was constantly speaking about self-development, you know, developing young people. Everyone that is around him, you know, could say something positive about Ashley Creel. And I think that is maybe one thing that I want to take away here, man. I don't want to say I want to become just like Ashley Creel, but that spirit, man, that was within him. Ek bid dat die Most High vir my guide, man, dat die Most High vir my die spirit kan gee, die flame kan gee, sodat nie net ek nie, but almal rondom my, man, all the young people around me, you know, that is currently standing up against the system that we're still fighting today. You know, maybe now is not so worse, is miskien nie so hectic the way het gewees het tyd, but ons is nog altyd geoppress, man. Ons fight nog altyd die gutter education. Ons fight nog altyd because die government bou ons kinders temporary skole, man. Now, who dignify ons kinders? How do we restore the dignity? You know, how do we take them from their past, their parents, their great-grandparents, how they lived during apartheid? You know, how do we change that so that we can say we are really free? Because I don't believe that we are entirely free. I mean, I listen to so many stories out here, you know, there's real activism, you know, and so I wish that we take this and we carry it on from strength to strength, and, you know, I mean, this again, I'm going to make reference to the castle where we are situated now. Do our young people really know what was happening here and what was the purpose of this building even, you know, and what was happening behind this walls? What was the idea, you know, as to why they designed it, you know, or why they built it in the first place? But there's a lot more attached to it. There's a lot of stories that we don't know. There's a lot of things that is hidden still in today's time away from us, you know. But I think it's high time that we get into a space, you know, where we not just educate, you know, because this thing is beyond education, you know. It's maybe I shouldn't say it, but I know there's some of you out there, maybe more than just some, that knows exactly what I'm speaking about. This thing it's bigger than us. It's bigger than what we are fighting every day. You know, so many people criticize us fighting just for the colored child and coming out unapologetically saying, you know, that brown people deserve to have a voice too. A lot of people has got a lot to say about that, saying words like we're singling out race and, you know, we're further dividing, you know, but nobody had the courage to stand up, man. You know, I always say it, I said it before, I said that if we want to really say that we are all one human race and we look beyond color, and I think it starts with government, and more than government, it starts with activists and community leaders, you know, advocating to remove the term then. But when I go and make an ID application, I need to tick a box. I remember a few years ago there was a teacher, a sir, he declared himself as an African and he was actually criminally charged for that, you know. So when you do say that you're African as an African, then it's like it's a fraud, you're a fraudster, you know. But when you do want to embrace your culture, because I believe color is a culture. It's a culture, the way people live. It was a culture that was designed and formulated here in the Cape, you know. And I think when you look at that, you know, political parties has gone over the years, for many years, and they have gone pro-black. In fact, I think the first day me and Brother Al met, it was at the museum, and we were blessed to be in the presence of Dr. Alan Pushak, you know, and he stood up and he spoke about him being in the struggle and his responsibility that he had in the struggle. And you know what he ended off with? He said, you know what, after 1994, I think 1994, 1996, they no longer called him a comrade. They said, you are a colored hero. And he was shocked because he said, wow, so I'm colored now. After the struggle, after standing in arms, after standing together as one, after saying, you know what, we are all black, you know, we are African, we are proud, you know. Then he was told that he is now a colored hero, you know, and that's where he was confused. And then I don't know what happened after that. I can't say what happened after that, but for those of you that were there in the time, you should know what happened after that. How colored people were pushed aside, and what the ANC did, saying, you know, that they stand for marginalized and for the poor, but they stand for black in particular. So when the National Colored Congress comes out and we say that yes, we stand for the marginalized, but we will fight for colored people in particular, and unapologetically, unfortunately, it's what it is. It won't change until I've said it there to them inside as well. Because there's a lot of activists here that are very, very long in the space, but you know, as som van hulle wat net praat en hulle is op 'n different level van mindset wise en politics en sulke goedes, but the living reality is altyd wat as always what I refer to them. Ek sê altyd vir hulle, ek maak altyd reference aan wat ons experience vandag, man. You know, and how the injustices of the past was not fixed. I will put emphasis on that, guys. The injustices of the past was not fixed. That's why we can't move into a peaceful future, because there will be no peace without justice. Now, our people never got justice for what happened to them, for the forceful removals of District 6 of 1950, 1960. Tussen hy tyd en wat ons mense uit Simonstown gegooi gewees het, where people were removed from places like Constantia, from Deep River, from Camps Bay and those areas. Our people lived there, guys. Understand that there was an act that was made legal by government. That's why we're saying, yeah, the law is only enforced after they have done that injustices to our people. Hulle het ons mense geryp, hulle het ons mense seer gemaak, hulle het vir ons uit ons huis uitgegooi, hulle het vir ons korrup en naait om maak hulle 10 aan die wet. right? Shoots word gecriminalized now. Now, I'm not saying any of that is right, it's wrong to different extents. But what I'm saying is that the injustices of the past was not fixed. Because the same people that claim that they are standing up for people, for human rights, they are fighting for human rights, they're fighting for human dignity to be restored, is the same people that turn their backs on us. It's the same people that turn and said, they turn the blind eye to the colored communities, they turn the blind eye to gangsterism, when they know that this is systematically formulated so many years ago, that this would be the result of the 30-40 years. I can tell you they've also planned for 100 years. They know exactly what's going to happen in the next 100 years. It's the way they plan these things out. They pay for these things, these propaganda machines. And besides that, they've done so well. Because everything that they've planned, it worked out perfectly. Now in this space, there was nobody that stood up and said, whoa. How are we pushing pro-blackness and pro-whiteness? You know, what about those that are in between? What about the brown child? What about those forgotten community? What about those that are now being labeled as mixed? You know, because I can tell you this, I speak to a lot of African people, and I see how they comment. Some of them comment on Facebook. They would call colored people Malau. They would call them a product of rape. I mean, I had first-hand experience at UWC, where one of the students of the EFF said, "Yeah, go back to your European ancestors." And all that I said was, he said that, and he said, yeah, something about Malau, something to that effect. And all I said was, you know, that reference that you're making there, it's the same thing like saying the K word. I didn't even say the full word. I just said it's the same like saying the K word. And you know what he did? He turned that whole thing around. And he said, yeah, how can you call me you know what I mean? And I said, but I never said that. But you know what? It was about standing my ground, standing firm, you know, against people also that claim to be, I wouldn't even say they claim to be, because there are a lot of them that are marginalized. There are a lot of black communities that do deserve better, that do deserve it, that their dignity be restored, you know. But I turned around and I said, I took out my phone and I said, let me do some research for you. He said, leave this university because UWC belongs to us. That's what he said. And I said, hold on, brother. Seems like you don't know your history and you don't know the history of this university. And I searched, I went in and I said, okay, my data's off now. I would have liked actually to show you guys as well. But maybe if you have time, go and search, who was UWC built for? The University of the Western Cape, who was it built for? You'll see it will pop up and it will state that UWC was built for colored people. That's what it says. But when I look at the history, because my uncles, my family is revolutionaries. My oma is a soldaat geweest in die struggling. My uncles het gaan mangel, het geskryf in die tronken, hulle matriek en hulle examen en allemaal die type van goedes, you know, but they fought against the system, right? It states there that UWC was built for colored people, but people like my uncles, no? They stood up, because they were on varsity that time, they stood up and they said, no, we will not allow you guys to oppress black people, because black people deserve to be treated as human beings. That is what they said. That is how the colored community stood up. Because our people didn't need a dompas here. We were treated bad. We were treated kak, sorry for my word. We were treated really bad. If I listen to the stories my grandma used to tell me, ek is die persoon. I'll sit down and soms raak my vriende kwaad van my. Hulle sê, joh, sy likes baie praat en sy likes stories aan luister. Want ek luister stories aan van hoe ons oumas en oupas gelewer het, daai tyd van die struggle af en hoe het gewees het voor allemaal die oppressive laws geïmplement gewees het. Waarvandaan af kom hulle? Daai is die type of conversations wat ek wil hê, man. Wat ek likes, ek enjoy it. You know, en ek dink daai is ook een van die dinge wat vir my stimulate ook, man. En so, you know, back to the point, my uncle and they fought, and everyone, not just them, everyone colored people in Cape Town, in the Western Cape, stood up against this government and said, no, we are going to riot, we're going to fight. And you know what? Okay, this is my opinion. I think because of the way that colored people stood up in Cape Town and the Western Cape, that's why these white boeren, not all of them, I mean, there are genuinely good white people out there that really feels what has happened, but they can't change the past. They're still living in some of them are still living in inheritance that they inherited, but the inheritance was stolen actually. There was a generation that was robbed, so that they can reap the benefits. But I do get that there is genuine good white people out there that really wants to do good and that really wants, they feel so bad for what has happened during apartheid. Unfortunately, they can't change that. So it becomes important for us. I'm not saying overthrow the government, even though I would personally just say all of these things. This constitution, that they designed this constitution. Because many of the things that was put on paper was not implemented. I can tell you that the constitution in itself, there's many things that's written there in the Freedom Charter is not implemented. It never materialized for us. So how did we benefit from that? Maybe there is some certain things, yeah, but I mean, there's much more that can be done. That is not being done. So what they have done and what they fought for during the struggle, people like Ashley Creel, if I watch that thing, it's like, oh, ik krijg goosebumps, man. Om te denken dat die mensen wat bekleed voor onze vrede, man. En vandaag is ons vat die legacy nog altijd aan, man. Ons is hier, ons try ons beste, man. For us, at least I can say I'm part of that few young people that is saying, guys, we can't allow the system and this government to do these things to us, man. And you still have people, man. You still have people, influencers, people that call themselves influencers, man. That are coming up against people like us that are trying to do good, man. I mean, guys, I could have done anything with my time. Our president, all activists, man, many of us that know that's been there from the start, that know what we stand for, man. You come and you want to jeopardize not what we have built, man. It's for our people, it's for your children, it's for our children, man. It's a foundation that was laid by people like Ashley Creel, Anton Franz. There's many more, man. What's this? Special February. There's a lot of people, guys, that died for this thing that we have today. And you think this is a joke? This is no joke. This is no child's play. This is no child's play. We are up against the devil. That's what we are up against. This thing is beyond the everyday life. It's part of the spiritual fight. Every day, guys, it's a continuous thing. We have to constantly make sure that our spirit is in line, that our spirit is ready to fight these people. How do we do this thing if we still have people like you? But you know what? They say nothing is new under the sun, man. So die ding wat julle doen, was klaar geskryf gewees. If I look back at the Bible and stories, that I've read, you'll see, yes, daar was Judas gewees. There were people that turned against. Even Jesus, his own people turned against him. What did he do? He could preach to the unconverted. Went out. Still, Judas was there. Maar hij had nog altijd Judas' voeten gewas. Hij had nog altijd die mensen gerespect. You know why? He knew already. He already knew all of these things that's happening. So ik bid my elke dag dat die most time, man, het is majesty voor hij niet guide, man. Zodat hij elke dag net stream kan net om die ding te kan continue, man. En die ding te kan fight. En even nadat ik hier is, moet er nog mensen reizen. Heel tijd. Because I don't think this thing will end here. Maybe become a bit lighter, become a little better. You know, that's what we're asking for. We want our human rights to be restored. We want human dignity to be restored. And we're going to do anything to get it. I'm telling you that.